What a wonderful gospel. Couldn't be more relevant. We are, as the person in the gospel was trying to find Jesus, to understand what the call, the mission would be, we are attempting to put on the mind of Christ so we can live that in the world. Of course, we live in a time of great paradox. There's great strides in technology which do much to alleviate pain and suffering, the human condition. But the other side of the phone, the coin, is that there is probably never been so much suffering in the world as there is right now. Injustice. In the midst of this paradox, we're challenged to put on the mind of Christ. And Jesus gives us this wonderful parable. If I didn't know anything about Jesus other than this story, I would follow him because he really embodies the heart, the core of what Jesus is asking of each of us. It's a powerful challenge to business as usual. It supports positive choices to live our lives according to the Jesus perspective. A parable is a door with many entrances and many exits. This story has the protagonist, the victim, and neighbor, and three auxiliaries: the priest, the Levite, and the Samaritan. According to Jesus, I can find life by behaving on the model of the Samaritan, choosing to accept myself, avoiding judgments of other people, and practicing humble compassion. Let's reflect on this for a moment. First of all, choose to accept yourself. In that society, the Samaritan was hated and oppressed. A great social activist rightly observed that each of us actually has a part of us that are oppressed and a victim. As we look for someone to be compassionate to, I suggest the first place we look is the rejected part of ourselves. We live in the present, look inward. The first hurt person you will find is yourself. Most people tend to deny their own pains and severe hurts, their internalized self-rejection. Many people love to beat themselves up with constant criticism, and if they don't do that, they project that criticism into other people. It's called projective identification. So, I would like to share with you what, in my opinion, is an absolute rule of life. One cannot be compassionate to other people until we accept and are compassionate to our own hurt self. Everybody in church looks so scrubbed and wonderful and great, and you do, but I know that beneath the surface, for many, there are very serious dramas going on, life and death. It's appropriate we don't always telegraph these, but I cannot afford the luxury of denying myself my personal wounds and conflicts. All of us have inner scars, and accurately labeling these scars and accepting oneself is the first step in developing compassion for other people. If you'd like to say after me, I choose to accept myself. I choose to accept myself. Thank you. Secondly, we avoid judgments of other people. Just as you're not your sins and mistakes, so neither is your neighbor. Once you know who you are, it doesn't matter who you've been. As I break the trance of labels that we think have the power to name who I am, we will be able to stop labeling others. Now, once again, behavior is another thing, and we have a right and duty to label behavior that is wrong or not right, but we don't attach that to the person, even if they do. We deal with our inner landscape first, learn compassion for yourself, and we'll learn some important lessons about being the good Samaritan for others. It was interesting that Jesus in the gospel chose as a good guy the Samaritan, who was a hated person in the community. But he did not hate himself. We don't categorize in terms of labels and judgments, because that's God's job. Family life is so important in this regard. Family is the first place we learn compassion, especially as children. And schools can be a great model in this. I'd like to tell you the story. I was in the 5th grade, and our teacher was Miss Campbell, a young woman, just a very, very nice person. And I was very interested to get on her good side. So we were walking together in the playground, and I told my teacher, I don't like this particular little girl. She has fleas, she stinks, and nobody likes her. I said that. Ms. Campbell, I thought she would approve of my righteous observation. It stung when she responded, "She has feelings just like you, Joe, and it's important to be more kind." Thank you, Miss Campbell, wherever you are. The good deeds you do will live on in many ways. These were simple words, but it touched my child's heart, and they continue to operate in my life to this moment. If you'd like to say after me, I avoid judgments of other people. I avoid judgments of other people. And finally, practice humble compassion. Once we've tended our own inner wounds, have let go of self-pity and the need to judge others, we can practice the art of compassion for suffering people. We recognize that all people are brothers and sisters, and there is no exception. Jesus belongs to a spiritual tradition of Judaism in which the secret name of God is compassion. Before I can have compassion, I must be aware of the sufferings of people. The great songwriter, poet John Newton wrote a wonderful song, "Glorious Things are of thee spoken." It was interesting that he wrote it on the deck of a slave ship, which was going to bring slaves to America or England. The problem was for him, he didn't realize, it wasn't that he was nasty or mean or anything, he just was unaware. And this is the problem of not having compassion. We're morally asleep when we are not aware of the suffering of other people. In some strange, twisted way, like the scribe in the gospel, his nose was buried in his book, so he did not really see the broken man at the side of the road. As we swiftly approach 8 billion people on planet Earth, we must be aware the problems are multiplying more quickly than the solutions, and there is a violent, cruel, ravaging side today that you just have to, you hear in the newspaper. I mean in the radio. I really am getting to a point that it's just very painful to listen to the radio. Broken families, poverty, disease, child abuse, various addictions, ignorance, racism, drugs. This is the way many feel they must live, being beat up. As clearly indicated in the gospel, compassion is not just a feeling, because it ends in behavior. Pity that ends in a feeling is a virtue, but compassion implies actually doing something to alleviate the sufferings of others. If you'd like to repeat after me, I practice humble compassion. I practice humble compassion. Thank you. In no other time is Jesus' call to compassion more relevant. We're being this morning challenged by the gospel. I simply cannot change all the suffering in the world, but I can begin by starting with my family, my community, and I can make a big difference by chasing oppressive, unjust systems. I can practice compassion toward the pain of the human family. And choosing to live by these words of Jesus, according to Jesus, we will find life. You will find life as you give yourself to compassion.